GM, good morning. Welcome to the Milk Road Show, the daily crypto show that makes you feel more accomplished than parallel parking perfectly in one go. I'm your host, Jay Hamilton, and today joining us is a first-time guest on the show, Kyle Chassé. Now, let me give you some quick facts on KC for those who don't know him. He got into Bitcoin in 2012. He called whiff at 6 cents. Damn, Kyle, that's very impressive. Founder of Paid Network, which was valued at 3 billion market cap in the last cycle. And today we're going to be discussing why Kyle feels so much conviction that this might be your last opportunity to buy in this cycle. And we're going to get into some specifics of what you should buy, not financial advice. Now, before we jump in, over 50% of you are not subscribed to this channel. We want you to subscribe, so we're going to hook you up with some free stuff. If you subscribe by the end of August, you only got a few days left, then you could win a Milk Road Pro subscription where you can get access to our portfolio and see exactly what we're invested in. Check the details in the show notes. Also, if you're watching the show, I know you got some ETH in your bags, and if you're busy AF like I am, you want a super simple way to get airdrops and staking yield in just a few clicks. I'm talking about a new product from our partners over at Kelp DAO. Check it out. Get ready because your reward farming game is about to level up. Introducing Gain, powered by Kelp, your degen concierge. Gain is an automated vault launched by Kelp that maximizes rewards for ETH users. It offers one-click access to airdrops and points from leading L2s like Linea, Scroll, Karak, and more. Here's how it works. Head over to milkroad.com/Kelp Gain and spot airdrop Gain. Get a complete overview of how your assets are deployed and the rewards and points you stand to gain. With just a few clicks, deposit ETH or SETH or liquid staking tokens into the smart vault. That's it. The best part, once you deposit, you're issued a liquid token, AG ETH, enabling you to participate in DeFi on Pendle, Spectra, Lyra, Splice, and others. Gain is already live, and you can go check it out for yourself today. Just head over to milkroad.com/Kelp Gain and get started. Kyle, welcome to the show. Great to have you today.
Good to be here. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you coming on. You're in Bali, so you and I are in different times. You're at night. I'm in the day. Appreciate you making the time for us. Let's start. The market is slow right now. It's boring. Altcoins are bleeding. What do you say during market times like these? There's two perspectives that we keep hearing. One is this could be a different cycle. This is the time when people start to worry and feel like maybe this isn't going according to plan. Others say, oh, this is just what we thought might happen. What's your view right now?
It seems to be playing out exactly like prior cycles. I mean, literally, it's been identical to almost everything else. You know, we're kind of right on track for post-halving rally, post-election rally. Literally, Bitcoin and the markets have rallied extremely hard the year after an election year, which happens to coincide with the halving year as well. And then also in August, September, out of Bitcoin's entire history, there's only been one August to September timeframe where Bitcoin was up. So it's also just par for the course that we have this kind of negative timeline or this negative kind of market pricing right now. But if you look at the largest asset manager in the world, and you know, what was it, like 2 days ago, they just bought another couple $100 million of Bitcoin, just every single day, just basically buying more and more and more. And they probably know something is going on, right? Something that's most of the audience maybe is worried about, but they don't seem to be worried at all, right? What do you think it is that the investment advisors from BlackRock are telling the people who are actually saying yes to committing more money to buying Bitcoin? What do you think they're telling them, right? Every single day, there's more and more money coming in. There's no negative outflows. So my guess is that if anyone wants to sell, BlackRock just buys it up off them. So they have no outflows. They just accumulate. I mean, that should be a big enough sign for anybody, you know, paying attention. But this is all literally par for the course. And I think it's very strange that people are very worried right now about the markets. You know, I mean, it's not strange. It makes sense, right? Like you have all of this kind of doom and gloom. You've got fear about a recession happening. What if this time is different? You know, what if the stock markets collapse? And I guess I was kind of wondering what might happen if if we have some sort of crazy economic black swan, we're on the macro level, because the government, the Fed have been kicking the can down the road for such a long time that eventually it has to come to something that has to end. But don't worry, the Fed nailed it. CPI is almost back down to 2%, exactly on time.
Exactly as they said, isn't it? Everybody hates on Jerome Powell, but I gotta say, like, the guy might have just absolutely nailed it.
And then you have a weakening labor market, and then his comments. It's kind of like I forget the guy's name. Who was it? Before Jerome at the Fed, bald head, when he was like, we're prepared to do anything that we need to do in order to make the economy strong or whatever. And then there was all these memes, just the money printer, go burr. And this is like last bull run or 2017, I think. I forget which one it was. It's the exact same thing. And in Powell's statement the other day, he's talked about they're prepared to do by any means necessary to create a strong labor market. And the fact now that CPI and inflation is under control, and CPI and inflation are a lagging indicator by 6 months of the economy, it gives them more freedom right now to do things creatively, like lower interest rates, which we'll probably see a fairly aggressive interest rate lower, in September 18th.
Do you think we might see 50 basis points when you say fairly aggressive?
I think we might see 50 basis points.
You think so, eh?
I think so, because they need to do something quickly. We're almost in September, October. We have like 2-3 months until the election, not a lot of time. So really need to get those unemployment numbers looking much better very quickly. Mm-hmm. And I think it was maybe a month or 6 weeks ago or something like that, where the Fed also announced that they would be buying $30 billion a month in treasury bonds because of the Japanese yen carry trade unwinding, which means that they're going to be selling off treasury bonds, which means there has to be a buyer for all the sellers. Otherwise, people will lose faith in the most investable, kind of safest asset on the planet. And so the only way that they can do that, it's not like the Fed has a huge balance sheet. They can just buy 30 billion off a month. They have to literally print the money for it. So all economic indicators lead to an increase in money supply, a very dovish stance from the federal government on a macro level. There's also talks about banks insolvencies coming, maybe potentially. We'll see if that even happens. But it's just more and more reason that you would need a stimulus to come in from the Fed and from the government. For me, October is a month, because I think that we have a couple things that have been looming. Mt. Gox is almost finished being paid back. If the U.S. government ends up selling these 200,000 Silk Road Bitcoin, I don't know if they will or not. We don't know. So we will know by then or not. At least we'll have some certainty in that, because markets hate uncertainty. The U.S. government has taken kind of a more clear stance in the direction of their monetary policy moving forward, which all of this leads to more certainty in the market. Plus, then the catalyst in my mind is the FTX repayments of somewhere around $12.5 to $14 billion going directly in cash into the hands of a bunch of crypto degens who are literally going to put it back in the market directly, immediately when they get it. So it's a big stimulus to the market.
Yeah. It's just, it feels like just a list of catalysts that are coming up in the next few months. What do you expect to happen in September then? Do you think September continues to chop?
I believe September 18th is the kind of the FOMC meeting or whatever it is, the Fed meeting, where we'll probably get the lowered interest rates. The market will start to rally. And what I've been telling people on my channel for a long time is end of September is probably when we start to see Bitcoin approaching all-time highs, breaking past 70,000, coming to 72, 74,000, whatever. By the time October will be the catalyst that pushes Bitcoin, in my opinion, over 80,000. Then we'll start to see by mid-October, early November, retail starting to come back in and the whole market shifting pretty bullish. I think this is kind of like into November is when we see Bitcoin back starting to really rally 85, 90,000, 100,000 by the end of the year. And that's when retail comes back in. This is when things get pretty crazy. And then we have this kind of like 8 to 12 months from, let's say, December or something, until I feel fairly confident that we'll be seeing this kind of parabolic bull run that we see once every 4 years. And this is the time that you want to be in the market now, not after that happens, because things really explode super quickly in these markets where you see altcoins and things like that appreciating 25, 30%, sometimes day after day, week after week. And this is when your portfolio exponentially climbs, and so you want to be positioned now. And so to answer your question, maybe we go down a little bit in in September. But for you to not be in the market, in my opinion, right now is too risky, because all it takes is literally something to happen where, Bitcoin pumps 10% in a day, all the altcoins pump 50 to 100%. And then you feel like you fucked up because you were in the market, and then you think it's going to correct or something, but then it just pumps again, another, 50, 100% in altcoins, whatever, then you're really in it. And now you've just bought back, twice as high as you could have today.
Yeah. Well, and the emotions during the parabolic phase, or the banana zone, as we and so many others call it. Thanks to Raoul Paul for that one. It's much more difficult. Right now, it's a hard time to buy if you have fear, and fear is often what leads you to actually do the opposite of buying and taking profits. And there's nothing wrong with taking profits right now. It all depends on when you bought in and what your risk plan is and what your investment plan is. But definitely the worst decisions are made on the way up and the way down. And on the way up is when people get really, really antsy and they start making bad buys and buying without any research, without any thought, because they just feel like they need to get into the market. Now is that time when you can make strong buys with a plan. And look, we don't have a crystal ball. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. Kyle, we very much at Milk Road are on a similar trajectory to you of the timelines that you laid out. And I want to get into some specific tokens that I want to ask you about. But before we do, I just want to touch on Bitcoin dominance and altcoin season, because every past cycle has seen Bitcoin dominance rise up through the beginning of the cycle and then hit a peak. And the question is, will that happen again? Will we see that point when Bitcoin dominance comes down, and will we get an altcoin season? And the tough thing about this cycle is when you say altcoin season, like, you're basically referring to every single token that's not Bitcoin. Now, maybe you don't put ETH and Solana in the altcoin. Maybe, you consider ETH and Solana a major, but you're basically talking about every other token. And there's a lot more tokens now than there was in the last cycle, especially if you include the millions of meme coins that are popping up every single day. So do you think that there will be another altcoin season when everything rises, or is there certain sectors or certain narratives that you think will outperform?
It's a good question. I think that it's a game of attention. In these kind of really insanely parabolic bull runs, fundamental due diligence kind of goes out the window, and the things with the most attention tend to pump the hardest, even if they don't have the fundamentally strongest underlying investable criteria. However, I do think, though, that it's a good idea to place your bets in some of these more fundamentally sound projects, because we're in a different market than we were before, where you do have the stigma of crypto that has been subdued a bit from the prior markets, where most people it was mostly retail involved, maybe some small hedge funds or whatever. But now, because of Larry Fink going out there and being an advocate for crypto in general, not even just Bitcoin alone, but he oftentimes categorizes the market as crypto and not just Bitcoin, very intentionally. So that stigma has been removed. And so now you have, a lot more kind of smart money, ultra high net worth individual investors who are out there looking to place bets, and they're looking for things with better underlying value, more, the way that they would kind of do research on stocks and things like that, and look at things like, is this protocol making revenue? Does it have an underlying utility for the token? Does the value accrual flow to this token or not? And the things that are the most fundamentally sound, maybe they don't pump the hardest in the bull market, but they're probably going to correct maybe a little bit less too. And it's very, very hard, if not impossible, to sell exactly the top. So for me, I just stress a lot less if I'm placing my bets on kind of fundamentally sound tokens that I don't really have to worry. In fact, it wasn't until I started my YouTube channel about a year ago, I actually started paying attention to markets. The entire 11 years before that in the industry, I didn't pay attention to markets. I just invested in fundamentally strong things. Bitcoin, Ethereum, was most of my positions for a long time. And then, 2017, I did some ICOs. I held some most of that stuff, Chainlink, Solana, stuff like that. I invested in some of these bigger things earlier. And then all 35 million shitcoins can't pump, I don't think, right? And how many tokens have been minted recently is all just pump fund tokens. And those things, I think that none of those are going to pump. None of the shitty ones are going to pump. If you have, like, let's say an awesome founder behind it who has connections, has some influencers on board, and is actually trying to do something meaningful and significant, they'll probably do just fine, especially in a bull market, right? But if you just have some shady fucking little dev who's just, just minting 100 meme coins a day to see what sticks, those things aren't going to stick around. So I don't know that we have, significantly more meaningful and real tokens than we have before. We have the appearance of way more tokens before because of the abundance and the ease of creating meme coins. But most of them just die anyway right away, right? They don't even survive. There's such a small percentage of these minted that are actually making it to a bonding curve, or the bonding on the DEX, and then even smaller amounts of those that are actually still above the launch price or whatever. So I think that the real projects that have a lot of KOLs and influencers and can really grab the retail attention and the mind share of people when they're coming into the market and point them in that direction will probably be doing the best.
Yeah. And you make a good point that when we get to that euphoric stage, it's pumpamentals that makes everything go, not the fundamentals. But then when we do get to the next bear, it's the fundamental projects that actually have they don't drop as much as the pumpamental projects are the ones that drop 99%. So you gotta think about that when you're investing in these different tokens, is just know, hey, is this a narrative-based play that I'm doing, or do I actually believe in the business here and the revenues and what they're building and the team and all the fundamental stuff? I want to talk about a couple of specific projects that you've spoken about on your show. We're going to skip the majors. We talk enough about BTC, ETH, and Sol, but I want to talk about 3 other L1s that are very interesting. One is Ton, which is particularly interesting right now because of Pavel being arrested in France. Kaspa is another one, and Fantom is another one with their rebrand coming up to Sonic in a very strong L1. Let's just go through those 3. What are your thoughts on Ton, Kaspa, and Fantom?
So Ton has a lot of, I think things brewing. It feels like it's got the making for success, but I haven't seen anything interesting yet that is actually active on Ton at the moment. Like nothing really useful. It seems like people are kind of experimenting with meme coins over there. Then I see people building mini apps in Telegram, but they're not even using the Ton blockchain, right? They're maybe using some other type of cryptocurrency or something. I personally don't have a huge position in Ton, mostly because the thing just kind of came out of nowhere to a huge market cap. For me, like, my bets are better placed elsewhere. I think that if you're looking for blue chips, I've already kind of established myself in blue chips, right? And so for me, I'm not very heavily invested there. Now, as far as Sonic or Fantom, the most appealing thing about that is, let's say this upgrade goes as planned, right? This new Sonic upgrade goes as planned. Then you have an experience that's very familiar to people because it's an EVM, so they can use their wallet, they can use their MetaMask, they can use their Rabby wallet. You can take over all the existing applications, Aave and Compound and Curve. You can take them all over to Sonic and use it there and have a really nice user experience. Now, I don't know what the bridging is going to be like. I also know that you have something like Mega ETH, which is going to launch in November as a layer 2 on Ethereum. That's going to outperform Sonic, so that's directly in core main ETH land area. And so who knows, maybe it's less significant to have this super fast and cheap L1 when you can just bridge over to Mega ETH, for example, and have an even faster and even cheaper user experience, because I think Sonic is supposed to do 10,000 TPS and Mega ETH is supposed to do 100,000. They're both theoretical at this point. We have no idea if they're actually both going to work or not. So I think that like it sounds great. Andre Cronje, maybe he's got some new awesome DeFi thing that moves a bunch of liquidity over. Who knows, man? But I think that it has a good chance of having a good narrative potentially. Could it get drowned out by, let's say, something like Mega ETH or Say, for example, when Say V2 launches? I think another interesting layer 1 that people are sleeping on is Sui. You got Aptos and Sui from Move, and I just hear a lot of people talking about SUI and building real things over there. I haven't seen much of it yet, but all this kind of whispers behind the scenes that I hear from my VC friends, from incubators, stuff like that, seems like the ecosystem is really going to be something special. And when I first learned about the Move language, I learned like that's so much better than Solidity for so many reasons, for the smart contract risk, for example, or like security, the way that accounts are designed over there. So I think that's interesting. Was there one more that you said that we didn't cover?
Kaspa.
What I like about Kaspa, there was no VCs. It grew super organically, and it has this like really fanatical community. And I think that's everything that you need for a really awesome ecosystem to evolve. Now, when they can launch their tokens on there, I think you're going to have a wild ecosystem. Still haven't seen it working properly over there. There's still an issue for people to bridge liquidity over. It's a really hard thing to do to compete in the L1 space. Like it's so hard. It's almost as hard as like a new social media startup, because people, the switching cost is just too much for people. When Tron started taking off and there's Justin Sun and blah blah blah, I was like, man, I can't be bothered to go install the Tron wallet and bridge liquidity over, and then even if you do, you just do a little bit because you want to buy maybe one thing or something like that. But then if something else pops up, you're like, oh, I don't want to do that process again, because all of my liquidity right now is on ETH and Sol. And
the only one that's really achieved this is Base. Base is the only one that has really been able to get the liquidity and pull people over, but rightfully so. They have the massive distribution and massive marketing dollars.
Even then, I would like to see it better, because Commonwealth, which is one of our projects, it's natively on Base. Paid Network is switching over from ETH and BSC to Base, and but I still have like a fraction of my net worth on Base. I mean, not even enough to put meaningful size into something. If something came out and this is my friends like, hey, buy this thing on Base, and I got like bullish really quickly, I wouldn't have enough there. I'd have to like sell some Brett or something like that, which I don't really want to do, right? Like all my funds on Base are either in Brett or Commonwealth at the moment, right? And I wouldn't want to sell either of those to go buy something. So even then, it's hard to get that switch. But that's why the technology is evolving the way that it is. Things like CCIP, Wormhole, Axelar, all these things that are making it easier for us to go cross-chain are interesting. And I think that just give it another year or two, and maybe all that stuff kind of feels like it's in the background, right? And it's like, way easier. I've invested in a couple cross-chain dexes that would allow you to quickly and easily swap one token on one chain for another token on another chain, pretty quickly, just like it was a Uniswap or something, right? And so that would be very helpful.
Fuck, that would be amazing. Please. We desperately need it. Okay, I want to touch on, before we let you go, Kyle, a couple of maybe more narrative-based, pumpamental, higher risk projects that you like. Could be, you mentioned Brett, so could be meme coin, maybe an AI or DeepIn. I know there's a couple AI projects that you like BitSensor or Based AI. Can you give us a few tokens that you like in the sort of high risk, high reward category?
Yeah, I mean, so my biggest investment of my lifetime essentially was in the Based AI and Pepe Coin ecosystem. And for folks who are watching who don't know what that is, I've made a couple of great videos. Maybe you can link them down below. I made a really cool, entertaining one that I don't know if you saw it the other day too, just kind of on the boys club.
Yeah, this one's sweet. Yo, you're shout out to your team. This video that you guys made on the story of Pepe is really cool. Not your typical video. You guys we'll link to it in the show notes. Go check it out.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to make. I wish it got circulated more, but it was really cool. People seem to love it. It took me a long time. So I was approached by one of the community members actually from Based AI and Pepe Coin, which for your audience, it's actually kind of the same masterminds behind the projects. And the bullish thing about Pepe Coin is that they're using the tokens to essentially in a burning mechanism to acquire kind of like they're called brains, but they're kind of like subnets essentially on Based AI, which is Based AI is this kind of layer one ZK ML, zero knowledge machine learning kind of AI infrastructure with fully homomorphic encryption. What that just means is it's encryption that allows you to encrypt something, encrypt a prompt, for example, on your device. It's sent off to an LLM, and that is never decrypted into plain text, but the LLM can still process it and then put the response back into, encrypted back to you. Anyway, that's really important for privacy and AI, because like, for AI to be super effective, like think about it. Like if you want the most effective AI for you, you want it to clone yourself, right? You want it to clone yourself so that it knows exactly what you would do in every situation, but also augments you in the areas that you're weak. So that's the best AI assistant ever. But in order for them to be able to be that good, they have to know literally everything about you.
You have to tell it everything. You have to give it all the data. Which
and are you really that comfortable giving all
Yeah.
that information to Google, OpenAI, Microsoft? No.
No.
And so I think that like either self-hosted or open source, decentralized AI models are going to be really important. Based AI. So I've talked to the devs a lot of times. The biggest concern is that they are anonymous, but they have a test net. They've been building for a very long time, a very long track record. And so I guess that all goes to show you that even though I've never seen them in person, I've talked to them many times on a voice call, there is risk involved there, of course, that they just don't end up delivering something. But I'll tell you, after a couple of months of due diligence and me essentially making my largest investment ever into an ecosystem, I decided to proceed with that, because I think if they deliver what they promise, what they're saying they're going to deliver, those two projects, Based AI and Pepe Coin, are going to be like, they have so much room to grow, fundamentally strong, good narrative, perfect narratives, team with a track record, and there's just not a lot of attention on it at the moment.
Yeah, they both have the perfect setup for narrative. That's for sure. I don't know a ton about either of their teams and their fundamentals, but they're both lined up for the narrative. Kyle, thanks so much for joining us today and breaking down so much for us. Any final thoughts to share with our audience, or please feel free to tell our audience where they can follow you. We'll obviously link to the videos that you mentioned before.
Like you said at the beginning of the video, it's been a slow market. So I've been kind of trying to, because I know that as soon as October, November comes, I'm going to be, back to grinding 14, 16 hours a day, whatever. So I've been chilling a bit, but mostly I make, especially starting next week, I'll be back, Monday through Friday, daily videos on my YouTube channel, and then trying to do twice a month, trying to do these kind of longer format, fun, entertaining stories as well. On X at Kyle_Chassé, on YouTube at Kyle Chassé Crypto. And then also I've got my domain, like actual website coming, like I believe it's going to be kylechassé.com. Anyway, that's where you can find me, and then kind of all the stuff I'm doing, all the things that we're building at those places. Also, I just filmed a TV show too called Crypto Nights, which is going to be really cool. It's going to be the Shark Tank of Web3, right? So it's like literally the Shark Tank format, but me and some other great judges, some great projects. So season 1 should be airing in November, which will be really cool.
Yeah. As always, if you liked today's episode, please hit subscribe and make sure you follow us so you don't miss out on the next one. There's also a link in the description to our free 5-minute daily newsletter where we simplify crypto for you while making you laugh. And if you're willing to step up your crypto investing game, we're going to also leave a link for Milk Road Pro. You get access to our portfolio where you can see exactly what we are buying. This is your #1 resource to help you invest successfully in crypto. One final note, this show is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Investing in crypto or any asset is risky, and you should never invest more than you can afford to lose. Thanks so much for listening, and my friends, have a wicked awesome day.